Good morning, everyone. We are delighted to have you here today. I'm Laura Hassner. I'm the strategic advisor to our Chief Innovation and Entrepreneurship Officer, Rich Lyons, who will shortly introduce himself. I'm also an instructor in the Berkeley Changemaker Gateway course. Today, we'll be talking about the sum of us building a culture of belonging, and we're really excited to welcome Christy Johnson-Limon to talk about that for us. One of the traditions in the Berkeley Changemaker is that every time we welcome someone new into our community, we ask them to share one thing about themselves that we wouldn't know in reading their CV or their resume. So I'll go first, and then I'll pass it over to Rich, who can then introduce Christy. So Laura Hassner, I am a fourth generation Golden Bear. I am so excited to be now working at this university that I graduated from in 2018. And I learned right before the pandemic shut down that my grandfather's oral history is in the Bancroft. So as soon as campus reopens, I'll be the one making a beeline straight to the Bancroft Library to hear that. Rich, could you please introduce yourself?
Happily. Thanks, Laura, and thanks to all of you for being here. So Rich Lyons, I am on the faculty. My field is economics, international economics. I was an undergrad at Berkeley, got to come back on the faculty. That's the joy of my life. And I've been here back since 1993. And I served as dean of the business school, and I'm currently playing a role in innovation and entrepreneurship, which has been super fun. One fact that isn't known about me, we just got a puppy. We got a brand new puppy, 8 weeks old, about 2 weeks ago. And I'm not getting any sleep. Okay. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's sort of okay. But boy, is he a cutie. His name is Winston. I'll turn it over to Christy.
That's a cute name. Thank you so much, Rich. Hi, all. I'm Christy Johnson-Limon, and I am the Executive Director at the Center for Social Sector Leadership, one of the institutes here at Berkeley Haas that works in particular around advancing social impact across industry and across sector. And we run a variety of programs to engage folks both in the nonprofit community, philanthropy, the public sector, and social entrepreneurship and business. And I have been here a grand total of 3 months today. And so I'm really happy to be joining you all as staff. I am also a double bear. I grew up in the Bay Area and did my undergrad at UC Berkeley with a degree in political science. And then I decided to go back for more and got my MBA at the Berkeley Haas School of Business and graduated in 2016. And if you really knew me, you would know that I love adventure. And one of the ways that that is expressed is that I am actually a skier. I learned later in life in my 30s how to ski, and my husband and I enjoy bombing down Black Mountains now, Black Diamonds, in Lake Tahoe. And we're teaching our 7-year-old how to ski, and our 2-year-old will also be on skis very soon. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you again for joining us, and we can't wait to hear about you all. And that's actually the first thing we're going to do this morning is we are going to put you in small breakout groups so that we can break this, fourth wall, the video wall, and you all can get to know each other and connect with one another. So you're about to go into breakout groups. And if you could introduce yourself, what department, where you are, what your role is, and then one thing that's not on your resume that you'd like to share. We'll give you 8 minutes, and then we'll see you back here and get started with the workshop.
All right, bye everyone.
Okay, bye. Hi, welcome back everyone. Hopefully that was fun and energizing and you got to know someone new. You got to share something about yourself that maybe you don't talk about all the time. And hopefully learn something new from someone else. So why don't we get started? Thanks again for joining us, building a culture of belonging. Here's our roadmap for today. Our learning objectives are up here. You're going to walk away from this workshop really understanding how a sense of belonging will help you drive performance in your unit, how you can increase retention, and how you can improve employee satisfaction. You're also going to walk away with practices on how to create a sense of belonging and connection with your fellow coworkers and colleagues. And third, you'll be able to actually share and put in practice some of those tools that we're going to review with you today in breakout sessions later. So if you want to reconnect with new folks, make sure to stay, and then we'll reconvene and share out some of your conversations. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Rich.
Thanks, Christy. So this is kind of 10,000 foot level, but we wanted to put together a sense for the frame of the Berkeley Changemaker, this narrative on campus that is in fact a codifying of a narrative that's been around for a long, long time. Berkeley's not the first place in the world to use the word changemaker, but putting the word Berkeley in front of the word changemaker has a particular resonance, and most of us have a sense for why, right? At the end of the day, it's about values that are quite defining of Berkeley. Values like question the status quo. There are a lot of wonderful values, but if just to take a wonderful university as a contrast, if somebody said Harvard, question the status quo, I think people would say, great university, but not the first phrase that comes to mind. So, that's deep in our DNA, questioning the status quo, things like, serving the greater good. It's in the DNA of this public institution. In any event, this Berkeley Changemaker curriculum, and it's even larger than a curriculum now, a people vision. If somebody said, what is Berkeley putting a stake in the ground about what kinds of people that it hopes to attract and put into the world. And that needs to be all kinds of people. That isn't one kind of people. But one of the things that it feels like our humanists and our social scientists and our scientists are agreeing on is this idea that lives of agency, we need whatever people are going after, we need them to go after it. And we need to give them the tools to go after that. And so we need curriculum that is loading on things like critical thinking and collaboration. How do we get work done together? Collaboration, communication, how do we stand up in front of a group of people and hopefully motivate them? That's a hard thing for an awful lot of people. How do we deliver on those 3 C's, as we call them? Critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. It's also this identity-making opportunity for the campus. So, Berkeley Changemaker really is quite distinctive and fits. And having people be able to see all of us under an umbrella that works, again, for the humanists and the social scientists and the more scientifically minded. That's quite helpful. And then it's been profoundly inclusive. I think, for a lot of students coming into the campus, my role, as I mentioned earlier, is mostly focused on innovation and entrepreneurship. But a lot of people don't find words like that very inclusive, right? Entrepreneurship, they do that, I don't do that, right? And you'd like people to sort of see themselves in the narrative of this university because it must embrace so many different kinds of people. And we are finding that people are seeing themselves. This changemaker narrative is connecting to people of all kinds that are coming into Berkeley, and that's an exciting thing as well. So it adds up at the end of this slide to community. We have students are saying, we want to set up a Slack channel. We want to stay in touch with each other. So we have the gateway course called The Berkeley Changemaker that is in its first year attracted over 1,000 students. I'll say that again, in its first year, attracted over 1,000 students. And the students are saying, I want to stay connected to that group of people. We shared something in that class. So yes, it's a class, but it's also a burgeoning community. And I'll end on this point. We now have, in this coming academic year and over this summer, there's some 10 connector courses, so follow-on courses that we've developed, because students are saying, I do want to take a course like becoming a change maker in education or becoming a change maker in public health, or variations on titles like that. And so we're doing our best to build the curriculum out and provide opportunities for as many people as we can. So I'll stop there. It's definitely 10,000 foot, and I'll turn it over to Laura Hassner.
Thanks, Rich. Christy, if you don't mind going back one slide, please. Why is the Berkeley Changemaker attached to this session? Well, it's really because what we have discovered is that belonging is key. This is something we all know. We want to be included in this sense of community. And our students are wonderful at always bringing this to the forefront. And so I just wanted to share a little backstory behind the photo that we selected here. Obviously, this was taken right before the pandemic shut down, when our students were still able to be back in the same classroom together. On the left is holding his hands like this is Ibrahim Balday. He went on with some other Berkeley students to co-found Black Book University with the goal of creating an inclusive community with academic support and professional development for Black students on college campuses. They're piloting at UC Berkeley. Last week, they won a Big Ideas Contest award and intend to bring their message of inclusivity and community for underrepresented communities in universities and colleges across the nation. To Ibrahim's left is Jeremy Hammer. If you've worked in our innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem, you may have come across BearX. This is a platform that Jeremy conceived of and created along with a team of incredible Berkeley changemakers designed to create a community space for entrepreneurs across the UC Berkeley campus. And I know they've gone on as Harness to other UC campuses as well. So those of you who are joining from outside of UC Berkeley have likely come across their creation as well. Next slide, please. So what we have found, as Rich said, is that Berkeley Changemaker is creating a place where students who might not have seen themselves as traditional entrepreneurs have seen themselves as changemakers. And along the way, we have the privilege of watching this transformational journey. We thought today, as we conclude this very brief overview of what is the Berkeley Changemaker before Christy goes into her presentation, we'd share just one short video clip with you. In our Gateway course, we've invited faculty from across campus representing 18 different academic departments and 7 schools, along with key Berkeley Changemaker alumni, to talk about what change making looks like in their discipline, in their field, in their workplace. And along the way, what this has become, it's something we should have anticipated but didn't, is that we have distilled these nuggets of wisdom from some of UC Berkeley's most brilliant minds into these snippets that really help us to think about what does it mean to live a life of agency? What does it mean to live a well-lived life? And we have just a 1-minute clip from Bob Jacobson, our Dean of Undergraduates and a professor of physics. So you'll see me asking the question, what is your best advice? And then his answer. So I invite you to enjoy this with us. Thank you.
Your puppy's so cute. Let's see, does it work?
You're starting off on a long and spectacular career, a long, spectacular life. But don't forget that part of the job is to change you. Part of the job is to turn yourself into who you want to be, not necessarily who you are. You may want to change the world, you may want to change business, you may want to change technology, and that's great. But you don't get to say, I'm going to do it with the skills and the contacts and the friends and the abilities, the memories, the stories that I have now. I have to build all of those. So this is the start of the time when you're building the person that's going to go out and make the changes that you want to see. And you have to balance both of those. You got to keep working on yourself to be the person you want, to be able to do the things you want.
I'll get it next time, I swear. There we are. All right. What does it mean to build a culture of belonging when you start with yourself, right? So I thought that was an excellent segue into the conversation. You know, what does it mean to build a culture of belonging, the opposite of othering? And I love this quote by John A. Powell, who's the founder of the Othering and Belonging Institute here at UC Berkeley. And the way that we define it in cultural practice, one of the things I didn't mention in my introduction is I was most recently an executive director of a performing arts organization that worked with young people to build safe, brave, and inclusive spaces for young people to discover who they are, to unapologetically talk about who they are and what the world means to them and how they're navigating it in order to find a place in it and with others. And so for me, a sense of belonging really correlates highly with engagement. You know, how are you engaging folks who've been historically underrepresented or have felt left out for whatever reason, whether they be introverts or identify from someone from a community that has been silenced or otherwise marginalized. And so how can we cultivate and center around an overall belonging and having a greater impact to improve the workplace as we start to think about how building inclusive workplaces then moves outward towards building stronger bonds in our neighborhoods, in our community, and in our society as a way to be the change that we wish to see. So that's really what this conversation today is about. I will go into a few practical overview of what, you know, building a culture of belonging can look like, what it feels like, what it sounds like. But really the majority of the work here will be with all of you to talk about what some of the challenges have been. What are the barriers, either structurally, policy-wise, power-wise, that you're trying to then move around. And that's really what John Powell is talking about. How are we organizing our spaces and our structures and our policies to do that work, to build the world that we want to live in? So belonging, the way that we're looking at it, is really about how we're building these inclusion strategies that create safe and inclusive, psychologically safe and inclusive workspaces, and how these relationships play out really do make a difference in how someone shows up to the workplace. Do they feel like it's safe? Do they feel like they can have a voice and that voice is listened to? You know, and as we're thinking about what it means to return to work in the more traditional sense, you know, I want you all to maybe think about, what does it mean to return to the office? Not everyone ever left the office, right? Not everyone had the opportunity to work remotely, but many of us did and have been somewhat isolated physically, and work has really changed. And so how do we move forward in creating those safe and inclusive spaces in a hybrid work environment, which is probably what is going to be the future of work. So that's something to consider as we go through some of these tools. Another thing I want to say is, if at any point, anything that I'm presenting, you have a question about that, please feel free to drop it in the chat. And one of the folks who's supporting us, Luis, I believe, will organize those so that we can address them. And I'll make sure to keep an eye on the chat as well. So what does it feel like? Think about how you felt not included. A time when you didn't feel like your voice was being heard, where it didn't matter, where there was really no opportunity for you to engage in a particular either decision or a topic. And so what are some of the attributes of that, right? There's a sense of discomfort, there's a sense of disconnect, a sense that your contribution isn't meaningful. So the idea of creating a sense of belonging is to create that sense of comfort where you're respected and treated well by your colleagues and your peers, where you feel like you are connected to the folks that you're working with, and where you're contributing meaningfully to the conversation, to your team, to decision-making, or to even feel included. Like, let's say you just do not have decision-making responsibilities, but how are you including others so that their voices are being heard? What it actually looks like in practice at the workplace. Are there equitable opportunities for everyone to participate? Are you able to challenge norms, to ask questions in a way that are not being interpreted as necessarily questioning a decision, but yes, questioning a decision? How do you ensure that you're creating feedback loops where you're taking in feedback and making it actionable, even by saying, yes, I've heard this concern, and I'm going to take that into account as I'm making a decision. The other piece around this is around building relationships. You know, what are those relationships that feel psychologically safe? What do they look like, and how do you go about building those? A lot of that psychological safety comes from building trust and really getting to know what your colleagues and peers, what's important to them, you know, what's important in their lives outside of work. What sort of lived experience and perspective are they bringing into the work? And what it feels like is actually having a work environment that feels like you're not only listening, but learning from others, where you're feeling comfortable speaking up and speaking out. Perhaps there's a particular decision that you have concerns about. How comfortable do you feel bringing those up, either in your work setting or with your supervisor? I think that's some of the things that we think about when we think about creating these ways of building in trust, building in psychological safety, and welcoming in feedback and participation from a broad cross-section of folks across the unit. One of the things I've been thinking about is why belonging matters right now. And this is one of the quotes that I recall from business school from one of our professors here at Haas, Jenny Chapman. She has a class on leadership where the thesis is essentially that culture eats strategy for breakfast. The idea being that without a strong organizational culture, which is defined as the system of beliefs and values and behaviors that shape how work gets done in the organization, without understanding what that is, a culture will emerge. And so you can have the best strategy and the best goals and plans and people in place, but without a really defined organizational culture and set of beliefs and foundational values that you work from, you're going to get eaten for breakfast. And I love that because it's just a really great visual for me as a visual learner to think about how critical it is to ensure that you have defined values, as we do, at Haas, that we use to make decisions and that we structure everything around, that goes far, not just to build that psychological safety and to build that, a real shared set of values that everyone is working from, but expectations and being able to rely on, a framework helps to build a lot of trust as well. But, there's other benefits, right? The companies that cite, high employee engagement also report low employee turnover. They achieve or even surpass company goals. They attract diverse employees from a broad cross-section of backgrounds and lived experiences. And I would go so far to conclude that they have a competitive advantage over organizations that ignore these core needs that employees have, that the workforce has in order to achieve goals. One of the inspirations for this workshop title actually is a book that Heather McGhee recently released called The Sum of Us, which is this idea, the thesis is that we're all interconnected and that society is better served by fostering inclusion and creating a sense of belonging, not only as the just thing to do, but as mutually beneficial. So in other words, that we all prosper when we stop believing that our economy, our society, our workforce is a zero-sum game. And we'll go ahead and share a link to the book as a resource at the end, and we'll send it out along with a reading list that I think you'll really enjoy to go deeper into this topic about why this matters so much for organizations. So we're going to get into some nuts and bolts here, but I'll take a quick look at the chat to see if there's any questions before I move on. Reading list, absolutely. I'm always reading 5 or 6 books at once. Okay. So how do you start to foster belonging in the workplace? So one of the ways to do that, and you've probably heard this before, so it's nothing groundbreaking, but ask. Climate surveys are great because you can get a real sense of how your employees are engaging and how they're not. Do they feel psychologically safe? Do they feel like they're being heard? Do they feel like their opinions are welcomed and that they belong in the organization? Do they feel like there is a grounding set of values and practices that they can hang on as they do their work day to day? Another way is to build these social bonds. There's a reason why, when bowling went away, our society started to crumble. If you haven't read, that book, that's a good one, that really starts to talk about how we just don't have the same mechanisms in society that we used to have to gather. What is the civic space that you're creating? Whether it's happy hour or even the company barbecue, it could be something as simple as a reading group, or one thing we used to do at my old organization is we would just take hikes once every quarter to just get out of the office and get out into community. And one thing to be mindful of also is ableism. And so creating activities that a variety of able-bodied and not so able-bodied folks can participate in. This helps again to develop trusting relationships. And so having conversations, the water cooler talk, we've lost that a little bit in the world of Zoom. And so how do we create opportunities in a hybrid work environment to have those small conversations with folks, to hear about what's going on, with school, with kids going back to school. Another thing that we've been, in conversation about with our community are, as caregivers, I'm part of the sandwich generation. And so I have elderly family members that need care. And I also have small children. And so how we're navigating that, I've been able to learn a lot from other folks in my community, in my work community. Practicing intentional inclusion. I talked about, various ways, not everyone, likes to be around alcoholic beverages, for example. So what are some other ways to gather that offer other opportunities for folks to meaningfully engage and build relationships with you inside and outside of the workplace? Another thing we like to do in the performing arts is show and tell, where we will start off every staff meeting with one member of the staff actually reciting original poetry. not all of us are poets, but it was really fun to hear someone's creative take on what a poem means to them. And you learned something new, from that person. And what was great is that everyone had to do it. It was a rite of passage. And I think it really led to an increased insight into the person and kind of what makes them tick, but also it reinforced the reason for being, the mission of the organization and why we were there. And you got to experience how nerve-wracking it might be for a 13-year-old to recite their own poetry. And so it linked you also to the young people that we were working with. And then finally, I talked about aligning behind a shared vision. I cannot underscore enough how important it is to always, always, always underscore the reason why you are here. I know for me, it's about helping unlock the potential of social impact leaders and entrepreneurs to make change in their communities and in society at large. And so that's what keeps me coming to Berkeley every day, and also those folks that I get to work with at Sizzle. All right, I'm going to go into tools, and then we're going to go into our breakout groups, okay? So the practical tools and activities to build social bonds, trust, and achieve your unit, team, and company's goals joyfully are really things that you learned in kindergarten. How are you creating and inviting folks to come play with you in service to your mission? One of the tools that I talked about building into our work in the performing arts was around the art of the invitation. We came up with different ways to engage not just members of our staff, but board members and members of our community in different activities, whether it was an online writing workshop with writing prompts that folks could do, whether it was establishing different rituals at the beginning of board meetings or staff meetings, or if it was around getting feedback on a particular decision, either through a shared document or one-on-one conversations that were just quick and just designed to get engagement from multiple parties. I think those are just some of the practical ways that you can engage folks in your community. One of the ways that we opened up our staff meetings, for example, were the ritual of the poetry reading. Others were answering a particular prompt, something as simple as name the last most delicious meal you had, or what was for breakfast, to asking folks about the last meaningful event that they attended, like what was it about it that moved you? And so just be creative. What is it that you want people to know about you that maybe wouldn't come up in the course of the workday? Inviting every voice to be heard. So not everyone feels comfortable verbalizing or articulating. And so one of the ways that we've tried to include folks who maybe need a little more time to think about their responses, to let them know ahead of time what the questions are, just to take away the nervousness of having to answer or share something that's personal. The option to pass. Not everybody has the energy to answer your question about what you had for breakfast at that moment. You don't know what they're dealing with. And so it's fine to just go ahead and pass and come back, always come back, give folks another chance to respond. And then creating, like I said, many opportunities to participate in your processes. It may not just be verbalizing an opinion at a meeting. Using all these other tools that we talked about earlier can also support making sure that people feel included. Some folks prefer to write, and they're going to send you a really beautiful, articulate answer to your question via email versus being able to articulate it live in a meeting. And so that's something else to consider. Closing circles are also important, bookending the rituals. And so ensuring that at the beginning, you create space for everyone to contribute, and then checking in on what the energy is like at the end. That also helps to build safety and trust and continue to build that relationship and rapport with your team members. And then finally, one thing I did want to sort of call out is one way to build trust and sort of normalize feedback is to always have some sort of a feedback loop. And I think that's one thing that's emerged as a trend is how do you build in transparency and accountability? So what I have found is folks, particularly who are in non-decision making roles, they want to know what's going on and they want to be heard and feel like they were included in your thinking as you're making decisions that affect the entire organization or your unit. And so some of the ways to do that is to normalize feedback. which, by the way, you'll be able to give us feedback at the end of this presentation as well. All right, so I mentioned that we're going to go into a breakout. I know I threw a lot of content at you, but I think now is the time for you all to talk to one another. It's such a big group, and so we wanted to make sure there was an opportunity for you to discuss some of the things that I just shared, as well as your own strategies. How are you building this culture of belonging in the workplace? Or how might you do that given some of the things that you maybe learned today? So we're going to put you into 4 groups of 4. Be in breakout sessions. We're going to put in some prompts in the chat for you to use. And so we want you to think about, what are some of the ways that you can put these tools into practice? And before you get started, we're going to repeat the introduction again that we did at the beginning, because you're going to be in a new group. So introduce yourself, where you work or what your role is, and then something that isn't on your resume. If you really knew me, you would know that I raced in China on a dragon boat team because I love adventure. And then go ahead and share what some of the either challenges are or the tools that you're using to build a culture of belonging at your organization, at your unit. And then maybe even share some of the ways that the leadership influences, culture. There will be a number of prompts in the chat for you to use to just have a conversation. And then I do have one request, because we talked about accountability. Exchange information with one of the people in your breakout group, that is your challenge, and set up a time at a future date to check in on how it went. Choose maybe one strategy or one challenge or one opportunity that you're going to focus on. And then you're going to reconnect with that new person or other person that you already know, and you're going to share how it went. How much time will we have in the breakout room? Great question. Let's see, it's 12:13 now. So you'll have just under 20 minutes. So that should be enough time for the 4 of you to have an opportunity to introduce yourself, and then to either share a challenge or an opportunity for how you're going to build a culture of belonging. We're going to come back, and then we're actually going to share out. So those of you extroverts who want to share with everyone else on the screen are more than welcome to do so. And we'll also have the chat open for you to drop in your thoughts as well. Any other questions before we send you off to your breakouts? All righty. Have a great time meeting and connecting with folks. See you soon.
Please let us know if you're having any trouble accessing your breakout room, and we'll do our best to help you. Julia, could you pause our recording, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Great. Well, welcome back, everyone. I see lots of smiles, so I can't wait to hear about the conversations you all had. So before we sent you off, we asked you about some of the ways that you build a culture of belonging in your unit or with your teams. And we sent you some prompts, some questions to consider. So hopefully you all had a great conversation. Does anyone want to share some of the things that you all talked about in your group? And go ahead and use the raise your hand feature as Louise has posted in the chat. A little scary to speak in front of a big group of people that you don't know. I get it. Take a deep breath and be brave with me. This is a safe space.
We've got hands raised.
All right. How do we call on them? All right. I can only see certain ones in my box. Louise, do you mind helping me by calling on folks? Let's see.
Joshua.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, Joshua at the Center for Educational Partnerships here at UC Berkeley. We have about 11 programs focused on college access. It was really a pleasure to be with a breakout room trio of folks. And I think one thing that did foster some sense of belonging, one of the colleagues in the room had mentioned, is when leadership puts intentionality into giving you an understanding of the big picture. Because it is easy just to say, yo, you report to me, therefore I'm giving you an assignment. This isn't about asking questions. This is about rank and you just follow orders. And I think what myself and another colleague found to be very refreshing is the leaders that we are at the table with or supporting are saying, no, this is how what you do fits into the mission, vision, and purpose of X, Y, Z, or they just say, hey, this is all the stuff going on in my world. I don't have to tell you this, but I'm telling you. And it does lead to that sense of belonging, that I'm of value, even if my title and pay is vastly different, that you deserve to know what's going on. So that was one commonality that two of us had seen on that particular thing. Other than that, I think the only other closing part was just in work I do in community and not-for-profit leadership is understanding of recent the value of the icebreaker and new people I'm working with in leadership saying, no, I know you're an ops person. You like to just get down that list and do the checklist, but we're going to do an opening with how you're doing and a closing. And we're also going to spend 10 minutes prior to the meeting with a virtual happy hour. Drive happy hour, that is. And I've seen just how that changes the whole tone of the meeting. I know that's easier when you're doing heart work where everyone's volunteering because it's heart driven, but I'm going to close and say, I do see what value that does bring. I'm going to go back to mute.
Joshua, thank you so much for sharing that and for affirming that even pausing for a minute or two to acknowledge who's in the room and give voice to who's in the room really, really makes a big difference. So I see Catherine, and I'm going to mispronounce your name, I'm sorry, Suge. So I'll have Catherine go first and then Suge.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, Joshua. I loved what you were saying. We had a really nice chat about all different aspects of belonging, but Annika was bringing up something really interesting about having a time, for socializing and having that built into the workplace culture. And I was saying, like during COVID, we don't really do that. And now that we're going back in the office a little bit, I think it'd be really nice to start out refresh, our new process, our new schedule and everything with something built in so that we can hang out and chat a little bit, every week or whatever. And yeah, she was saying that they're getting 2 new HR generalists on her team, and the importance of starting people into the culture of socializing and of enjoying being around each other and getting to know each other right when you start. I think that's a really wonderful way to welcome people onto the team. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Catherine. I love that you're thinking about what practices you can bring in as we restart, you know, in most cases, our working relationships or have an opportunity to refresh them. So yay, and then we'll move on to Q&A and close. I didn't realize it's about that time.
Sure, and I'll just keep it simple that I think for my work environment, I work at UC Path, and it seems like, well, everyone's working remotely, and so are we. One of the things that, as we started working remotely, that we had this sense of belonging just because we were on site. We all worked as a team. We communicated with one another every day. We had those water cooler conversations. We had the walk by conversations, right? And as we transitioned to work remote, we had to work harder to create this sense of belonging. And it was not necessarily a hard effort, but just more of a making sure that we include everyone in those decisions and in those conversations. And one of the specific topics that I really resonated with me during our breakout session, Liz mentioned that that sense of belonging comes from the top down, right? So we have a team, I have a team actually with my co-manager of 90 employees. And we need to create this sense of belonging with 90 employees. So we start with our direct reports that we involve them in every single conversation, every decision, and we try to involve them. Let me correct that, because sometimes decisions need to be made on the spot. But whether it's a good interaction or a bad interaction, we want to continue that belonging with everyone so everyone's informed and understands the why. It's always the why, because I think that approach helps, that change management approach, and gives everyone that platform to express how they're feeling and making them feel involved.
Thank you so much for sharing that today. And you're reminding me that we lost so much of those social bonds when we moved to Zoom and had to recreate and reimagine what those could be in this two-dimensional space. And so I would encourage you all to take that creativity and recalling what it was like, you know, to share space with your colleagues in such a robust way and see what worked well for you. Laura put in a question there about, you know, what's working well for you. While you're, you know, trying to really build this community, essentially, because that's what we're doing here, is working as a community in service to the university, right? So as we wind down, it's 12:38, and I believe the workshop ends at 12:45. We didn't leave a ton of room for questions, but we invite you now at this point, if there are any lingering questions for Rich, for Laura, for myself, or any final comments before we send you off to lunch. I understand we're standing between you and your meal, so definitely want to let you take care of yourself. Any big questions from folks? Feel free to put them in the chat as well, and then we'll let you go.
And as people are coming up with their final questions, Christy, do you mind advancing to that next slide? Just wanted to issue an invitation. If you are interested in the content that we presented today, if you'd like to be a part of this community of Berkeley Changemakers, we welcome you. And we have created a list, a Google group, Berkeley Changemaker at list.berkeley.edu. We welcome you to join it. Every 2 to 3 weeks or so, we send out a very short curated list of an update on the Berkeley Changemaker and also what we're reading, what we're listening to, and what we're thinking about. And this will be a place where we share all of the resources that came up in this session. If you want supplemental reading, if you want to learn more, this is a great place to do that. And we welcome you. You can always reach both Rich and me at our easiest email address, which is changemaker@berkeley.edu. So you can either email there or join the list, and we welcome you to do so. So without further ado, please, your final questions and your final thoughts. We really welcome
that. All right. Thank you all so much for participating today. As you leave the chat, go ahead and, I don't know if you all use the chat feature at all. I love it. It's kind of like the side conversation. Feel free to drop in a word or a phrase. What are you grateful for right now as you're about to take your break at this conference? please share with the group. And it was lovely to meet you, see your amazing photos and your smiling faces. Thank you so much for everything you do. And hopefully we were able to share a little something to help you deliver on your mission.
I would